Okay. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. We really appreciate you being here tonight, and we're so excited to start this project with you. I'm going to hand it over to Dana. And Dana, actually, I'm going to spotlight your video so people can see your face on here as a speaker. But please take it away. I'm keeping everyone else on mute at the moment, but I'll hand it over to Dana.
Good evening. My name is Dana Rankin, and on behalf of the council, we want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your schedules and for being interested in joining us to discuss the future of Concord. We know that you are busy people who care about the township as much as we do, and we are so excited to be working with you hand in hand to create a vision and a path forward for several initiatives over the next year. We know that last year was challenging, but it provided us different opportunities for how the township communicates with our residents. We live stream our meetings, we actively update our website, we share information on social media and the message boards at the township park and the municipal complex. Council wants to reach and interact with as many residents as possible through various platforms. We are excited to kick off the Voice Your Vision project tonight. Due to the ongoing nature of this project and the importance of a transparent and cooperative approach, we will work to outline clear parameters and to manage expectations for what can and cannot be achieved in this project. Council wants to share what the township is planning and wants the residents' feedback. In order to achieve this, the township partnered with Connect the Dots to revamp our strategy when it comes to including residents in decision-making processes. Council is interested in having more interactive meetings to collaborate with our residents. In order to prepare for this meeting tonight, we have done a lot of outreach and surveying to begin to understand how people feel and what they would like to focus on. My colleagues and I were excited to participate in a survey to come up with opportunities within our community that we feel are necessary and feasible for us to address during the summer months. Connect the Dots then aligned the interests and goals of the surveyed community members with the ability and insights of the council members and came up with 3 topic areas that we will discuss more in just a minute. The goal of this process is to collaborate with our residents to help shape Concord's future decision-making and engagement strategies so that all of our events, outreach, and communication will serve the dual function of a council community collaboration and working towards action items on identified projects. We will work together over the next coming months, starting tonight, to discover immediate short-term actions that can set the stage and grow in the coming years. We are focused on the next 3 to 6 months, but these projects will plant seeds of a long-term effort. And we want Concord residents and business owners to be a huge part of these efforts. And now I would like to introduce Kirsten from Connect the Dots. Kirsten is a former Delaware County planner. Her team works with municipalities and neighborhoods to achieve a high level of community engagement that is inclusive, equitable, and open. They create processes that are highly informed by citizens and provide many opportunities for a communicative, collaborative engagement that achieves much more than the average public forum. That is what the goal of this project is. And now Kirsten will explain it a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dana. Really nice to have everyone tonight. Thank you so much for joining us and for your time, and soon for your participation. But we wanted to spend some time getting everyone on the same page first. So I'm going to present my screen. Give me one moment. Can everyone see that? Nice and big, full screen? Okay. Great. So I'm just going to do a quick project overview for everyone. So again, I'm Kirsten. We also have Alexandra, Becca, and Winslow from my team here tonight. And we're going to have time for you to get to know us better if you'd like. We'll stay on a little bit after, or you can email us. Actually, Alexandra, do you mind dropping the hello@ email address into the chat just so everyone has that easily accessible? Thank you. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time getting everyone on the same page and setting the scene for what's to come today and for the rest of the year. Quick little expectation setting, we're going to be done promptly at 8:30 today, but we will have time to stick around a little bit after if you do want to chat with us. I know that remote meetings means often you're kicked out of the room right away, but if you were here with us in person, we would have some time to chit chat afterwards. So we'll stay if you have any other questions or want to talk about anything. There's also going to be a lot of time tonight for your thoughts when we join the breakout rooms, and we really do want to hear your thoughts. We just need to be sure that you have all the information that you need to be well engaged first. And then there are going to be many times over the course of the year that are really dedicated to purely hearing from you, including the second half of the program today. We also really want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we do ask that you all do the same when you're sharing your thoughts. Please try to keep your thoughts succinct and conversational. And also anytime you'd like, please type into the chat. We'll be saving those, collecting those. We'll have them for later. That's really helpful information for us too. And anyone who has not introduced themselves, if you want to tell us how you found out about this session, we'd love to hear that. And then tell us what neighborhood you're from, and then you can connect with your neighbors as well. So we want to get everyone on the same page. We ask that you listen when you need to listen and read the material that we send along. We're working really hard to give you the full story in all of our communications documents. So if there's any confusion or question about the purpose or direction of a topic, it could be us. But we're really trying to pack those with information so that this project is clear and transparent throughout. So I'm just going to jump into the quick summary. I'm going to share the results of the survey that really shaped this kickoff event and that helped shape the ideas of what types of project the council is going to lead in some way this year. The plan is that after this session, in which we all get on the same page, we'll have an initial conversation. So council members are going to be spearheading at least one issue that's a really high public priority, and they're going to host a community engagement session and then take one action by the fall. So within the next 3 or so months, you'll get some kind of an invitation or see in the paper, maybe both, that each team of council members is going to be hosting some kind of event. And those are open to everyone. You can go to none, you can go to 1, 2, or all of them, but they're all completely open and you're absolutely welcome to join and encouraged to join. Those are going to be listening sessions as well. And then council is going to take one action by fall. That action has not yet been determined. So that's something that you'll help build into if you can join us for those meetings. And then finally, that closing event is going to be in September or October, depending on how these things are playing out. We just want to give ourselves a little breathing room for things to happen over the summer. And that's going to be an opportunity to recap, to check in, to communicate, and really to celebrate the efforts of the year with a possibility of expanding on or continuing what's working. So because of the nature of this project and the short timeline, some things are going to be achievable and some things are not going to be achievable. And we want to really be straightforward about that. So the things that are going to be part of this effort, we want to make sure that throughout there are opportunities for collaboration, transparency, conversation, and alignment between citizens, between council members, and between council and citizens. We're really going to be working towards discovering immediate and short-term interventions that can set the stage and grow in the coming years. We're focused on the next 3 to 6 months, but we're really planting the seed for future projects, future conversations. We're going to be working with and listening directly to community members, so you. So being here tonight is the very first step in that, and then there will be a lot more opportunities throughout the season. Our activities are going to be inclusive, creative, and engaging. And we also want to hear from the community. We want to learn from you. We want to understand what's really desired and achievable for the majority of people. And we're going to be accounting for minority needs as well. And whenever possible, we're going to work to connect with residents over issues of interest. If needed, council can provide additional information or take opportunities to educate more about a complex issue that may not be on the table for this season, but they're still available to have those conversations in order to kind of reach a mutual understanding, so that these topics are complicated. There are a lot of components, and so we're available to have those conversations throughout. And then we also understand that opinions are very diverse. So we plan to pursue items that can mostly be agreed upon and not necessarily come to a 100% consensus. We're recognizing that these are complicated issues, and we need to have a little give and take in there because things are nuanced. We also want to demonstrate a more creative and flexible approach to community meetings. So just like this one, this may be a new type of meeting for you. Citizens are going to be asked to really co-create these sessions and collaborate with the council members. We're working also throughout to reach a broader community and hear from people in a much more meaningful way. And then finally, the mission itself here is really to connect to people, to ideas, to council. So all ideas are welcome for discussion, and we can determine whether or not there's something that is achievable for this year. So those are all things that we can cover this year. Of course, when we choose things to focus on, a couple things have to come off the table just because of time and energy and resources, all that good stuff. So just be aware that some things are going to take years to implement. Things like zoning or land use reform. These things are on our radar, but they can't be expected to be achieved within a single year. The efforts we take will, however, set up a lot of these long-term goals and make them more achievable in the future. So we're really just planting the seed right now. We also recognize that people have a lot of different communication styles. We did a townwide survey, and for the folks that did answer the survey, granted it was an online survey, so we're taking that with a grain of salt, but people who did answer, 98% of them said that they liked email information best. So we're going to be communicating primarily through email, but website and texting is going to be a secondary mode, and we're also hosting several larger meetings in person or virtually, COVID dependent. Unfortunately, not all suggestions can be directly or immediately implemented, but we do really look forward to having these conversations about future possibilities. Also, no actions are going to be finally implemented without deliberation of the full council. This is how government works in Pennsylvania. There needs to be a council conversation before the stamp gets put on it, but you know, all these conversations are viable and will help to inform those sessions. So finally, these are listening sessions, not committees. Hopefully it's a little more interesting than a survey or a public comment period, but we can actually have a conversation and work some of these issues together and watch these conversations evolve. But just again, these are not standard committees. So decisions aren't necessarily going to be made here, but conversations that are really meaningful and important to help us inform the future of these projects are going to be had. So I'm going to walk you quickly through the survey responses that we got from many of you here, not all of you. Light overview, we got a little over 200 responses for this. Most respondents, about 75%, have lived in Concord for more than 10 years. I think about 40% of respondents have lived in Concord more than 20 years. So this is a group with roots. We really want more, I'm sorry, I'm speaking for you now, but these are the themes that we got. People want more engaging contact through emails and newsletters and social media. People want to be included in discussions about long-range vision, and people would like to see resources accompanying meetings. That would be helpful. And we absolutely hear that. And so that's something that we're going to be starting to do right now and will carry through into future conversations. A couple priorities that folks indicated, and again, this is a thematic view of the survey. These are not necessarily individual quotes. We'll get to those later. But when we kind of looked at the big picture and heard a lot of the things that were being said over and over again, these are some of the things that we heard from folks. So few physical connections between different parts of Concord. So few sidewalks, it's a very auto-oriented place. Comments about little active management of growth and density. So we heard some themes about a lack of open space and a change in town character over the last couple of years. And then the need for a prioritization of nature and environment. We also heard about the need for support and maintenance of existing infrastructure and assets. And we heard about the need for more communication between residents themselves, and also between council and residents. So, and then kind of another theme that came up was collaboration should be reflected in the physical environment. So there should be places for people to gather. There should be things for people to do outside communally. So things like placemaking as a concept, which we can get to a little bit later too. So there are so many topics to cover. There are so many fascinating things that happen in a township. We needed to narrow them down just a little bit so we could figure out what it is that we're going to tackle just at the very first steps for this year. So we wanted to make things that were manageable and actionable. So I'll tell you how we did that. From a council survey where we started, Connect the Dots first brainstormed and then suggested a long list of topics and presented them to council. From that list, when we gave out a really brief survey to see what they were interested in, what topics they thought were things that the township needed to focus on, we found the most popular there. We removed some of the ones that we had kind of guessed wrong on, like maybe this isn't as big of a priority as we thought it would be. We got down to a smaller list and were able to rework that then and come up with a list of 8 topics. And then these are the ones that we listed on the community survey. So in terms of things that out of those 200 respondents, we heard were essential, environment and open space rose to the top, land use and zoning rose to the top, and transportation was a close third. In terms of things that are important, community engagement and connectivity rose to the top. We also asked people to tell us kind of what was not important to them and less important, or not to be considered, and we took that into account as well. So these really bubbled to the top as the essential topics. And we only chose 3. We chose 3 because we had 3 council member teams who can tackle these topics and push them forward for the season. This is not to say that the other topics are not worth pursuing, but we really had to choose 3 to focus this year's energy on. And we tried to make that a crowdsourced decision through the survey. So for the topic selection, we did the in-depth analysis of the survey feedback. We focused on topic areas that were most important to the community members. That's what I just went through. And then we kind of widened that scope of topic area to try and incorporate more feedback. And we reworked, we massaged, we figured out what could really fall into 3 simple categories. And we came out with the following 3. The first category for the year is going to be talking about connectivity. The second is planning and land use. And the third is community identity and communication. These are going to have a lot of overlaps, and we're going to try to find things to focus on that make these really individual topics. But this is just for the year, and I'll go into explain a little bit more now what each of these topics means. So the first one is connectivity. We learned that people who responded to the survey feel that there's a need for more opportunity to really safely walk and bike and hike throughout Concord, with things like sidewalks and pedestrian connections, like bike paths and open space. And people also want to experience less traffic and less traffic congestion, and see maintenance and improvements on existing roads. So some of the goals, that we'll be focusing on for this are things like making Concord more connected, more inclusive and diverse of transportation options. And the question here we had is, what about traffic? I know when it comes to connectivity and travel and transportation, traffic is a really big question for your township and a lot of townships in the area. So we'll get into this a little bit more in the breakout rooms, but we understand that the root cause of a lot of the frustration around traffic and congestion in general stems from traffic on roads that are ultimately controlled by state agencies like PennDOT. Those are agencies that plan, that pay for and maintain these roads, and the township just doesn't have a lot of control over the issues that occur in these areas. And this is not to say that the traffic, that the issues on the local roads can't be discussed and that the relationships with those agencies can't be strengthened in the future. But that's something that we'll have to talk about in those smaller groups. Kind of traffic in general and curing traffic is not necessarily something that's on the table to be accomplished this year, but we can make small steps in that direction. These are some direct quotes that we got from the survey that led us to decide that connectivity was really a topic that we needed to focus on. So things like walking through the business community is impossible because of disconnected sidewalks. Concord Township needs sidewalks. We need connections to and from neighborhoods and trails. And we hear that. So we decided this was something important to focus on. The next topic is focused on planning and land use. So a majority of respondents shared frustration with the level of development in Concord and the balance between new developments and open space. People generally believe there needs to be strategic long-range planning that preserves open space for recreation, gathering, and environmentally conscious programming. So some of the goals and ideas that are on the table to discuss this year are things like investment in remaining open space, updating planning documents, initiatives that focus on environment and sustainability, and then things like consideration for easements or land purchasing. So those are all things that may come up in conversation starting today. Some quotes that we heard that made us say, this is a topic we need to hone in on. As a community that has grown so quickly, I'd like to see the reasons I moved here preserved, such as open space, wide manageable roadways, and the natural beauty of the area. Another one, our community is being turned into urban sprawl with little planning or strategic intent. So again, we hear that. It sounds like something that needs to be focused on a little bit more carefully this year. So we're going to start today. And then the final topic is community identity and communications. So a lot of people responded that they feel the character of Concord is being affected by big box stores and vacancy in retail spaces, and that there aren't many spaces or opportunities for gathering. Respondents want to see more opportunities for gathering, greening, and two-way communication coming from the township. So things that can be focused on this year in terms of community identity and communications are things like placemaking, which we can get into more soon, community events, focusing on sustaining small businesses, and enhancing community partnerships and gathering opportunities. So specifically for this topic, this grouping is meant to cover a couple different areas. First, there's the physical identity, or how Concord looks and feels when you're living, working, moving around it. Things like whether the big box stores are there versus having small businesses be prioritized, or whether there are trees and plantings, whether there's art and signage, about township history. All of that can affect the feeling of place and community. And then there's also this idea of the social aspect of the town's identity. So whether there are opportunities or places or channels for people to either gather or communicate or share ideas. This may be as simple as talking to neighbors, more chances to gather, block parties, community events, or things like a newsletter so that everyone's on the same page. So, but both of these things, both physical identity and the social identity, have things to do with creating this sense of community, and that can be achieved through collective visioning and planning. Some things we heard that led us towards this topic were things like we need more small businesses and fewer chain stores, beautify and open the areas we have, and revamping street and neighborhood signage is something that's important to people. So these are going to be the council member pairs that are going to be working towards these topics this year. And I'm actually going to turn the stage over to them one pair at a time to give a little more background on why this issue is important to them and things that they may cover a little bit more this year. So I'll start with Dominic and John. I'm going to hand it over to you.
John, if you don't mind, I'll go first. My name is Dominic Pileggi. I'm president of Township Council. I moved out here in 1990 and definitely qualify as living here 10 years or longer. I saw a lot of changes in my time in Concord Township, just in the way the subdivisions were handled. For instance, on my street, Patricia Lane and Governor Markham, when they were built back in the 60s and 70s, it was a paved cartway with no upright curb, no sidewalks, and no rolled gutters, just the side of the road, and then you started cutting grass. Somewhere in the 60s through 80s, the road construction in Concord evolved, and some of you might even live in some of those neighborhoods where they have the rolled concrete gutter at the ends of the road. But again, no upright curbs or sidewalks. In the 90s, development changed again, where it was required for the cluster developments, which a lot of the newer neighborhoods are, to at least have vertical upright curbs. And then that evolved to putting sidewalks on one side of the street, and then evolved later to sidewalks on both sides of the street. For those that don't know, Concord was a very rural town at one time. Back in the 50s and 60s, the zoning for houses was only 3 and 5 acre lots until a court decision, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, said that 1 acre lots could exist. And that's why you see a lot of lots with long driveways and things of that nature. I was born and raised in the city where we had sidewalks and curbs and a grid-like layout for the streets. And remember as a kid, being able to walk down to the local school to play football or whatever with my friends along a sidewalk and come to the edge and look both ways and make sure you can cross the street. Later in my life, when I moved to Wallingford with my family, there were no sidewalks and curbs. Now that I'm in Concord, I'm an advocate for sidewalks and curbs. I always have been. In fact, I think that I was on the council or the board at the time when we started insisting on sidewalks and curbs being added to the developments on Baltimore Pike and some of the other commercial areas. The idea is if a development came in, have them put the sidewalks in. When the next guy comes in, we'll connect that. I think Mr. Gillespie can talk about the Baltimore Pike corridor. I think we have a grant, John, with PennDOT to start connecting a lot of those loose ends along Baltimore Pike. And if you want to chime in on that. John, you're on mute. John, mute. John, you're on mute.
How's that?
That's much better, John.
Okay. Yes, as Dominic said, he's being a long-term member of our township. I've been here since 1998, and I moved into the Concord Woods development, which was a result of opening up developments because of the sanitary sewer system that was installed. But looking back at the connectivity and roads, when you look at our township, it's a rather large area. I believe we're about 14 square miles with about 20,000 people. So you look at the roads, the road structure in our township. You have Route 1 that traverses, well, we'll say east to west, and 202 north to south, 322 north to south, and all controlled by PennDOT. And some lesser roads controlled by PennDOT, like Concord Road and Smithbridge Road. So PennDOT really has control over those highways. We work with them. We have a very good relationship with PennDOT, but we really concentrate on the local roads and approving developments and making sure that the standards are up to current standards as far as the cartway width, the paving thickness, the curbing, and sidewalks. And as Dominic said, we're really a champion for sidewalks, and we get them whenever we can, and it's almost all the time. So we do have some trails that we're working on with many different grants that our township engineer has gotten approved for us, and grants take a lot of time. You can't just get a grant and start work the same season. A lot of planning, a lot of applications, approvals by many different agencies. But we have the Octoraro Trail, which the design is finished. Construction grant has been approved for the first phase. Second phase, we're looking at the design at the current time. But there's a lot more to talk about traffic and local roads and some of the things that came up as far as transportation. You have SEPTA, the trail network, biking and walking, sidewalks. We're trying to pull it all together and make Concord a walkable community. So I'll give up the rest of my time to the next person. That's about all I want to say at the present time.
Thanks so much, John and Dominic. And I'll note that Thomas Mahoney is also a member of this team. He wasn't able to make it here tonight. All right, for the next 5 minutes or so, I'm going to pass it over to John Crossan and Dana Rankin.
Cool. Thanks, Kirsten. My name is John Crossan, and I am Vice President of Council, and I've served on Concord Township Council now for 3.5 years. And, where we, John and Dominic talked about, when they moved here and where we come from really shapes who we are and how we think about life. And I grew up down in Bear, Delaware, just north of the canal, and grew up backing up to a farm. And when I was growing up, it was all farms around me. And now it's all developments, and so I'm aware and sympathetic to how an area can change from one type of a community to another. And but I grew up in 4-H, and my dad was the local ag teacher at the high school, and so really grew up with a strong appreciation for open space and trails and the connection to nature. And that is one of the things that really inspired me to join council, because prior to moving to Concord Township, then I lived in Beaver Valley, just over the state line in Delaware. I rented a house, an old farmhouse from Woodlawn Trustees in Beaver Valley, and that's where I fell in love with Beaver Valley, and really got involved through the effort to save the valley. And everyone remembers that from just a few years ago. And today the valley is saved. Just last month, the 254 acres on Beaver Valley Road that was the subject of the development was preserved and went into the national park. But I think that really served as a catalyst to change a lot of things in Concord Township. And I'm proud of the work that we've been able to do the last few years in Concord Township. But it boils down to not whether you like something or don't like something, but really the nuts and bolts of how is land zoned, and what are the ordinances, and what are the rights of property owners given zoning and given the ordinances and so forth, and how do you make changes, and if you make changes to an ordinance in one place, that affects everyone for whom that ordinance applies to. So it's while at some level it can sound as simple as I like this or I don't like that, or we should have this development or we shouldn't have that development, it becomes more complex. And I've worked in the last few years to see how do we increase our strategic planning around open space as well as our funding for it, because when it comes to land, the best way to control it is to own it. And land doesn't come cheap, especially around here, as everybody knows, right? The real estate market is on fire, and so it's only getting more expensive. But proud to say that one of the little known facts is that there's almost 2,000 acres in Concord Township that's identified on our open space map as being open space in some capacity. And the township itself, Concord Township itself, owns over 300 acres. And we're currently updating our open space plan, our strategic open space plan, which guides the work in terms of what open space we go after and what are our priorities. And we're really focused on different hubs around the township and expanding contiguous open space, because as we look to protect environmental resources, that's best done in a hub fashion as opposed to more of a patchwork approach. And also from a funding perspective, in the last 3 years, Concord Township has committed over $7 million towards just open space acquisition, the land purchases, and another $1 million towards parks and trails and recreation. So these things are things that take time, but they are things which that work around Beaver Valley, I think, really did change the conversation in Concord Township. And in the last few years, not only have we updated our planning documents and allocated the money, but we have preserved over 30 acres of land. There's about another 100 or so acres of land that we are in discussions with right now. Just the nature of it being real estate discussions, those are confidential. So unfortunately, we're not able to share them until everything is ready to go. But I can assure you that that there is land out there to be saved, and we're working hard to do that. And the open space plan update that is going to be released this summer is going to continue to guide that work from a strategic perspective. And so I will turn it back over to Kirsten.
Thanks so much. Thanks, John. And let's hear from Benita and Colleen about the last topic.
Hi, good evening. This is Colleen Marone. I'm one of the council members that was recently reappointed to the Concord Council. I actually served prior on the council for 7 years before going to Delaware County Council. We moved to Concord 24 years ago to raise our family. At the time, we had one daughter, and since that time, we've raised our 3 children here. And the same reasons we came here 24 years ago are the reasons why I believe the community identity and communication are really important for our township. We want Concord Township to continue to be known as a place where people want to live, work, and raise their family. We believe that, throughout the years, that has been one of the draws to Concord Township, and we want to keep it that way. The community identity, I remember when I first went on to county council, we had the opportunity of some commercial properties moving into the township. And we were looking to identify a look and feel so that when you started entering into Concord Township, little things like black traffic lights would allow you to see that you were entering somewhere different and get a different sense or a feel. The architectural elevations on buildings throughout Concord and setting design standards that builders would be able to create communities, spaces that really appealed to the residents of Concord Township. We also know that there are a lot of voices out there in the community that we don't get to hear from. And this Connect the Dots initiative really is allowing us to hear from voices, more voices in the community, and to hear what you're thinking. We know everybody has busy schedules. We're taking kids here, we're taking kids there, we've got jobs. And sometimes getting to one of our meetings is just not the top priority. But we want to find ways that we can improve that communication and reach out to the residents of Concord. So I'm really thankful that you're all with us tonight and look forward to listening and hearing from you later.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Vinita, and I want to take this opportunity first to thank you all for taking time to be here and meeting with us and interacting with us and voicing out your thoughts about the town that we all live in. For me, the town is very important because you live here, I live here, we all live here, and we all make a combined effort to make it a great place to live. I do want to tell you a little bit about myself. I moved to Concord Township 14 years ago with my husband and my son, and I'm happy to be here and have raised my son in this town. We basically moved here starting, the first item on my list was the school district. So we moved here because of a great school district. We moved here because easy access to airports, since my husband travels quite a bit. And we could not find any better place where we had a city-like feel, but at the same time, a small town charm. And this gave us both of the best of both the worlds. So I'm glad that I moved to this township, and I'm comparatively a new member on the council. I joined the council and was appointed in January of this year. I thought this was a great opportunity for me to serve the community. I come from a family where my mom always helped kids who were not very fortunate to have school education and their school supplies. So that was the first lesson that I was given as a kid. You always give back to your community. And I thought this was a great opportunity for me to do the same, continue to do what I was already doing, helping out people. I've worked with Medicare, Uprise with Medicare subscribers to help them out with their any issues they may have with Medicare. I've also been on the school, high school association, school and home and school association as a vice president. My son will be graduating this year and going to college. Very pleased to be here. As I have lived here for the past 14 years, I have noticed that the council has done absolutely a fabulous job so far with what my experience is living in this town. At the same time, there is never anything perfect. How can you reach perfection? You always have to make an effort. There's always room to get better and make things better. While our township is a great place to live, and while our councils have made great efforts to make it a beautiful, happy, safe, and secure place to live, I believe that communication with the Concord Township residents is going to help us and enable us to make things happen. And so I'm glad that we are here to hear you out, find out what your thoughts are, what your minds are thinking, and how can we make this great place even a better place to live. Thank you. Kirsten, here, I hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And Vinita, that's a perfect segue. So thank you. Really nice to hear from all the council members. That's stuff that I didn't know about you. So I love learning that. And thank you to all of the participants tonight, residents. You are amazing listeners. We've been talking at you for 45 minutes. So we are now going to give you a chance to share your thoughts with us. If you can do something to help us out, we're going to be going into breakout rooms, and we want to know, we want to give you the opportunity to join into the conversation that you're the most interested in. If out of these 3 conversations, you could really talk about anything, you're interested in all of them, don't do anything. But if there's one of these 3, either A, B, or C, that you're really interested in joining the conversation on, please now go to your face on the Zoom screen, go to the 3 little dots on your square and scroll down. It should be the last choice of rename. And I'll ask you to keep your name there, but add either A, B, or C to the beginning of your name so that we can sort you into the right breakout room. Again, if all of these topics are great for you, we're going to sort you into one at our pleasure. But if you do really want to focus on one of them, just indicate that by putting the letter at the beginning of your name. So we're about to break out. I'll just leave this on here for another second so you can see what the topics are in case you're renaming yourself. We're going to ask that you remain in one of these 3 breakout rooms for the remainder of the conversation. The reason we're doing that is because if you join on later, maybe if you switch rooms and come in halfway through, you may not have the context or the thread of the conversation that's been happening so far. You will have other opportunities to join into these different conversations. But at the moment, just for tonight, we just want to start kind of pulling at these conversational threads. So if you can stay in the room, that would be fantastic.
Hey, Kirsten, could you just go over again the instructions for how to change your name just from a technical perspective?
Yep.
I don't know if you're able to show that.
I can't show it, unfortunately. Zoom hides controls really nicely, for better or for worse. But if you hover either your mouse or your finger or trackpad over the picture of yourself on this Zoom grid, and then click on the 3 little dots that come up next to the little mute button over your face. You should be able to click rename, which is at the bottom of that menu. It'll pop up a little screen, and just put one of these letters in front of your name if you are interested in focusing on one. You'll still get sorted into a room if you don't do that, but this is just to indicate your preference. So in these groups, we really want to be respectful of everyone's time. We're going to ask that you all do the same when sharing your thoughts, and please keep your thoughts succinct and conversational. If you do have more thoughts and feel like you didn't really get enough time to share, put those in the chat. We'll save these chats. The facilitators and the council members can interact with those chats too. So your ideas will still be saved in there if the conversation is kind of moving and you can't jump in. But we're going to try to make sure that everyone gets some time. There are going to be 2 council members and 1 Connect the Dots facilitator in each room. And just for the sake of this session, if the facilitator asks you to be brief, it is out of respect for the group's time. We know this is not going to be a problem. I always say it anyway, just in case. If need be, we're going to ask people 2 times to be respectful. You know, if you're taking up a lot of the space in the room, since we only have a small amount of time, if you're talking for, 5 or so minutes, we want to make sure that other people are sharing that space. So we're going to ask you twice to be respectful, and then we're going to ask you to leave the group and share your thoughts later in a more constructive way. That might be one-on-one time or a phone call or something like that. Again, we know there's not going to be a problem, but we just really want to be clear about that expectation up front. And we hope everyone will give us and your neighbors the same respect that we give you in these groups. So just a quick reminder to council members, again, this is about listening. We know you all can talk about all of these topics at length because they're really important to you, but we want to make sure that we're setting the tone for this year about how we can listen and collaborate. And so if you can keep your chats open, the Zoom chat, just in case the facilitator needs to give you a little nudge, we don't have hooks to pull you off stage. So we may just need to give you a little chat. So keep those open. Other than that, let's see, I'll give Becca another second to sort just in case people are still choosing their topic.
I had everybody who's changed their name. If you could figure out how to change your name, you can also put in the chat yours and I can assign you that way.
Okay, we'll give folks just a second to do that. And then everyone else who hasn't indicated a preference, if you can just sort them to a room, please. We'll give you 1 more minute just in case there are any technical issues. Does anyone have any really quick questions? I have time for 2 questions.
Yes.
Oh, I think Roberts, Mr. Richmond, it looks like you came off of mute and then went back on mute.
Yes, I on the 3 dots, I don't see where the 3 groups are.
It won't be 3 groups. It's just a rename feature. Can I put you in a group? Do you have a preference?
B, please.
You got it. I will change your name to start with a B. Does anyone else need that?
Thank you.
All right. Becca, do we have everyone else in groups?
Yes, now we do.
All right, cool. So we're gonna pop into those. If you have any technical difficulties, you can head back to the main room. You can rejoin the meeting and Becca will shepherd you accordingly. And then we're gonna have these chats for about 25 minutes. And then we're going to reconvene again all together and just do some sharebacks. So without further ado, all right, we will see you in the breakout rooms.
Get bumped to 2022. I don't know if anybody heard me. Okay.
Yeah, we got cut off. The hook.
Hi everyone. We're rejoining the main room now. I know that was not a lot of time for people to chat, but we really just wanted to do like a quick, very light taste of this more conversational style. It seems like there are a lot of really specific topics to talk about. So maybe each of the groups started to hone in or kind of get an idea of what could be tackled in the year. So I'm going to give a couple of minutes just for share back. It might not have been quite enough time to dig into any topics, but I'd love to hear, I think our group will go last because I already know some of the answers, but I'd love to hear from maybe Vinita. I'll call on you to see if you want to either spotlight anyone in your group to share back, or if you wanted to share any ideas that you heard.
I do want to share something that Eric brought to our attention, and I like the idea, and I appreciate Eric for bringing it to us. He would like to see something whereby people are able to, and correct me if I'm not right here, Eric, based on what I got from what you said. I think he wants to see our community to have not quite business forums, getting people together, but basically communication whereby, or gatherings whereby people can meet or communicate with each other, get to know their town, get to know more information from either Zoom meetings or a location where they can meet, which I thought was a absolutely awesome idea.
Thanks, Vinita. John Crossan, did you want to share briefly something that you heard from your group?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about the land and land use, and one of the conversations that came up with resources. What are the resources that are available to purchase land? We were talking about how different land has different value, and what the trade-offs are, how we prioritize land for preservation, looking to expand existing open space, things like that. Someone brought up about homeowners association open space and the opportunity to leverage that to do more with homeowners association land, maybe work together with the township and other neighboring homeowners associations with regard to access or use, things like that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And John Gillespie, did you want to share any of the themes for ours?
Sure. Yeah, we had breakout room A, and we had three interested residents that were concerned about the trails as far as the backyard screening and safety, and the complete streets, what we thought about complete streets. And it sounds like the fix here might be a show and tell for the trails, maybe over at our township garage, like we did for some of the other projects, where we have the hard boards on easels and show the residents where they can come in and walk from easel to easel and see where these trails would affect their individual property. So that seems like something that we need to do.
Thanks, John. And I love how you're already thinking of actions for next steps. So I want to briefly tell everyone what the next steps are, just so you can start anticipating them and getting excited and get your gears turning. With another reminder that we are so open to hearing from you at any time. If you have more thoughts on this topic, reach out to us. There are going to be a lot more forums to actually share and have conversations about these topics, including, we'll stay on a little bit later today. If you are starting to talk about anything interesting in your group or want a really specific answer from a council member, and we can make some space for you to have that conversation right after this. But essentially, for the next steps, these council member pairs that you've been hearing from, thanks, Alexandra, our email again is in the chat. The council member pairs that you've been hearing from are each going to brainstorm together with a little bit of support from the comments that we've gotten from you tonight and some of the survey responses as well, some kind of next activity in which they're going to find a way to learn more from you. We're going to make that a public announcement, a public invitation. Invite your friends, your neighbors, your grandparents, doesn't matter. Please join us for all three of those next sessions coming up. We have not planned them yet, but we will tell you all about it as soon as we do. Join us for those conversations. And at that point, they may be in person, they may be online, depending on COVID regulations, but we're going to have deeper conversations about these topics and really hone in on a single action. So, for example, our group may have the group A, when we were talking about trails, the first conversation might be at the firehouse or a show and tell or something somewhere where you can actually see the boards and talk about the trails and then decide on what that action is together. And then by September or October, there is actually going to be an implemented action that you'll all be a part of. So if you have any more questions about that, please let us know. I'd love to we do have a couple extra minutes here. So I see some things popping up in the chat, which we're going to save and disseminate to the right people who can give you answers on those. But if anyone would like to join in and make any comment or have any thoughts on how this process went or how you'd like to be involved in the future, I'm going to open the floor up really to anyone who wants to jump in with a couple thoughts.
This is Chip Price. One of the things I think is very helpful in these kind of calls is if you can send by email the slides that you used earlier in your presentation, which we can then pass on to other people. They tend to be very helpful ways to get other people interested.
That's a really good piece of feedback. Thank you. I'm going to put that in my notes. Anyone else have any thoughts?
This is kind of unrelated, goes back to the communication that you spoke about earlier. I've been receiving the group email distribution communications for a long time, and many people are surprised to hear that it exists. So I don't know if there's a better way to advertise that or just get it out to more people. I feel like I'm always forwarding mine to other people who have never even knew that it was an option.
Amy, this might not be a question for you since you did find us through that trail, but are there any others that you would suggest places to post more information?
I don't know. I'm not sure where I even found out about it, to be perfectly honest. I don't know if it's easy to access from the township website. I don't know. I don't know the best way to get that out there. I've sent it out. I'm on my homeowners board, so I've sent it out to my whole community, hoping that other people would request access to it. But maybe that's one way to tackle it, is just, getting in touch with existing homeowner boards and disseminating it that way.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's really helpful. Amy, we're going to consider you a really important community node that pushes great information out. So thank you for doing that. Don't worry, we won't rely solely on you, but anyone who does have larger chains and networks, you are going to be the people who a lot of your neighbors get this information from. So please keep helping by pushing out this information and spreading the word. So we really want more people to be involved. Any other thoughts from today? Any feedback that can help us do this better throughout the year?
Hi, I wanted to add something. Maybe when you send out the tax bill, could you just send the information at the same time how to get connected?
I think that's an idea that I'll ask Amanda if that's possible. Amanda, do you mind if I put you on the spot?
We actually have in the past put information on how to join that listserv that Amy mentioned. And we do have it easily accessible from the website, and we have pushed it on social media, but it sounds like it needs a refresher. As new people come into town, that always helps, and definitely Amy great with the HOA push out and trying to do some other things. So we're thrilled to have feedback and keep trying to push that out. So thank you so much. And that's a great idea on the tax bill. We include a letter and have been, but not everybody sees that. But it's another avenue for sure. So thank you for bringing that up too.
And Sid, I see your comment here too, Sid Hess. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't see your face on here, but yeah, so originally we had to limit this to 100 people just because that's what you can fit in Zoom for everyone's faces to be shown. And we figured there would be kind of a drop off. We ended up getting about 80 registrants for this. So I'm glad to see that all of you showed up. There usually is some drop off just because people register and then they're like, oh, it's late. I don't really feel like joining. But if you enjoyed this, please tell other folks that we really want to be inclusive and we want to spread the word and have a lot of people have these conversations in the future. So thank you for that comment. We just have a minute left. Any final thoughts? And then otherwise, I'm gonna say goodnight.
There is a website called Nextdoor. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Maybe if we put something on that, it's usually just a local community website that people sell things, buy things, you know, they advertise things. Maybe that would help get the word out to people.
I think that's a really good idea, Carolyn. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that's another one. I think that one probably Facebook. A lot of people get some township information on. And again, yeah, we'll probably add something in future announcements, like post this in different places that you're familiar with. And yeah, we got to get those nodes pumping. Thank you.
But I do think this is a wonderful forum, and I want to thank you. I appreciate the fact that you're involving the community like this. It's you feel more part of where you live, which is the whole object.
Yes, very well put. Thank you. All right. I see some more chatter in the comments. So more of that, always email us, call. We're open to hearing from you. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I'm going to
Kristen, can I say something?
Go ahead, Dominic.
I want to thank you for setting this up. I didn't know what to expect. And I mentioned earlier in our group about listening to 8-track tapes and being the dinosaur in the room, but I applaud your pulling this off and getting it done. And I echo, and I'm reading the comments on the side, and you made a believer out of me. So thank you very much.
That is so great to hear. Thank you. And thanks for trusting this process. I know all of these council members are putting themselves on the line with this project. And it's so important, I think, to kind of turn the tides of how people are communicating with their township members. And this is a rare opportunity. This is not something that a lot of places are doing. And Concord's kind of taking the leap here. So we applaud them for doing it. And we really hope that it pays off with all of your comments and all of your input. And your appreciation is wonderful. So thank you. So I'm going to say goodnight to everyone. I'll let you jump off. Thank you so much for coming. If you would like to stay, we're going to leave the room open for a little bit longer. And if you had any final questions for council members, we can get you kind of a private chat with them too, just to answer any questions you might have that are burning. But thank you so much for coming. We hope you join us for future events and have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you're sticking around to talk to a council member and you'd like to put their name in the chat, we can match you and put you in the right group. Or if you just want to ask your question now, please feel free.
Okay, I was going to ask a question. I was trying to type, but it took too long to type.
That's okay.
So how about instead, when the property come up to for sale, and I suggested that years ago, maybe let the community know and maybe raise money from the community that would be independent from whatever the township already has, and maybe making a private and community project so that we could acquire more land as needed. Is that something that could be possible?
Which
I don't know if
council
you-
member might be the best to have this conversation?
Sure. So one of the things with regard to real estate transactions is that they're often negotiated privately in advance. So when in terms of when a property, is if it's publicly marketed, those tend to be more homes. Although there are certainly some commercial properties that are out there, but the price tags for those are so huge. That but I think that to your point with regard to additional funding, we've had a referendum in the past, and I know that Middletown Township has also done a referendum. So in the event that we need to raise more money to acquire land, that can certainly be something that we take under consideration.
And then if you know that who are the community that are potentially gonna retire, move out, maybe see if there's something you're interested in and proactively contact them. And maybe instead of having it becoming a transaction, is there a possibility that we could just, proactively go after some things instead of waiting after the fact?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're doing is we've identified, council has identified large properties and properties of interest to us, and we have made proactive outreach to those owners. Not everyone is interested in selling to the township. We're talking about it, but we are certainly making proactive outreach and making ourselves available, because sometimes they just need to know who to talk to and know that the door is open. And as we do purchase more land and we make more announcements about what we're doing, word gets out. And in fact, in this last year, we've had several landowners actually reach out to us first before they publicly marketed their land and said, hey, are you interested in buying this? And is the township interested in this first? So that's been good.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to suggest that. I mean, I know some place like Wawa, they go after land and they seem to find good plot of land. So I'm thinking, maybe the township could do something similar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for all your help. I just wanted to add, because I was taking too long to type it.
No, exactly. Sometimes it's
Thank
just
you.
easier to say it. So thank you so much.
I have a question for John Gillespie. John, this is Bob Richmond. I'm sorry I couldn't get in two groups. I'd like to be in your group too. And I raised this in the earlier survey, and that is the disconnect with sidewalks from developed properties to undeveloped properties. They're required, but I guess the people with the undeveloped properties in between, a lot of those along Baltimore Pike, are grandfathered in some way. Can they be required, or by eminent domain, can the township put sidewalks across those empty lots?
Well, that's a good question. You mentioned Baltimore Pike being a state highway. So that would be a partnership between PennDOT and the township. Sometimes that's difficult. Oh boy. I don't know. It's something that we could certainly look into. I mean, are there specific areas on Baltimore Pike that you're talking about?
Well, I'll give you a good example. I live at Maris Grove. We can walk up Evergreen Drive, and there's a crosswalk there that goes across Evergreen Drive towards Stiers, and it dead ends at an embankment. And I've seen people walk in the actual travel lanes of Baltimore Pike to get around there to get down to Wawa. And that's been that way for 12 years. And it's just unacceptable.
Okay, well, that's something that we need to look into. You want to walk down to Wawa? Yeah, okay.
Part of it, I think, there might be there's a house, there's a historic house there, I think, that's sort of I don't want to say in the way, but it precludes, I think, the natural sidewalk connection from being sort of put in line with everything else.
Well, you can check it out.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Actually, Bob, there may be a new road connected into Evergreen Drive So if you walked out of Marist Grove and made a left as you're walking, there may be a new driveway being constructed by the landowner there that you could actually walk over through that driveway over to Wawa rather than having to go out on the Baltimore Pike.
That would be a wonderful public service if he would do that. Just cut a hole in the fence there. Yeah.
Well,
good idea.
The curbing was already put in when we did some work there. So it's a matter of making that happen. So maybe we could put a little nudge in their ear about trying to do that sooner than later.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Gillespie, I had a question about the A&E Church on Spring Valley Road. It looks very nice, by the way. But who's going to, is Concord Township responsible for the upkeep as the Historical Society? And how much more is going to be done? Is anything on the inside going to be done?
That's a very good question. Township owns that parcel. There's a lot of things happening. The exterior of the church was renovated. We're going to do a few more projects there. We didn't realize when we bought that property that there were graves. So way back in the early 1900s, we found out that there's 8 graves that are on that site. So now we own a cemetery in addition to a church. So we had some ground penetrating radar to locate these graves. So we're going to be putting up some kind of signage and maybe a memorial for those buried people. Yes, the parking lot will be improved. There'll be some nicer fencing put around the site. And also that may be a parking area for one of the trails that will be coming by there as well. So there's a lot more to happen with that church. As far as inside, whether it's ever going to be opened again, I don't know. I suppose we'll need to talk to the AME people to find out if they have any intention on performing services. Maybe it would be a site for weddings. Delaware County Heritage Commission thought very much of that project. So Saturday, I am going to appear and get an award for the preservation of that church. So
well, congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm actually going to meet a reporter from the Daily Times on Friday. He's very interested in writing a story about that church. So you may see some things in the newspaper in the next week or so that is going to bring a lot of these thoughts to happen.
Well, that's great. That is a part of Concord Township history that I bet the majority of the people who live here have no idea what it is.
You're right.
Or anything about it. And to highlight that, I think would be a wonderful idea, is something that should be continued to highlight that bit of history of Concord Township.
Well, what happened, I'm also on the COSA board, and one of the ladies on the board said something to me about being involved in Concord Township. And I said, yes. She said, well, my aunt has a dying wish, and she's 98 years old, that she wants to go back in that church that when she was younger, they used to walk from Westchester to go there for church services. So 2 years ago, I arranged that, and a lot of people showed up, and they actually had a little service outside. They were singing, and they had a grand old time. And some of them had boots on and shovels. And I said, what's with the boots and shovels? Well, we think that we don't think, we know there's some graves here. We're going to go dig some holes to see if we can find some graves. I said, oh my goodness. So they didn't find anything. But the one lady did show me deeds, death certificates for 8 bodies that are buried there. So that's what started the campaign on finding out what the heck's going on with this site that we bought when we thought we bought a dilapidated church. Now we bought a church with a cemetery. Mm-hmm. So it's the story just keeps growing as time goes on. So
it's a fascinating story, and I think one that needs to get more publicized in Concord Township. There's a lot of people, and I live in the neighborhood next to it, and there are a lot of my neighbors that don't even know what that church is. Yeah. So, but you did a wonderful job, and congratulations, because I've taken pictures all while you were doing the work. I've taken pictures just to keep track of it, and it's wonderful to see.
Yeah, so the lady did get her dying wish. She got there and we opened the door. She couldn't go inside because it's very dangerous. The floor's all uneven. But she did get in, looked in the door, and they took a lot of photos and whatever. And since I found out that she had passed on, so she would have been, well, that was a couple of years ago. She would have been 100. So yeah, she had passed.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for the update. And thank
You're
you for the
very
meeting. It was very informative.
Good. I'm glad you joined. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Right. It looks like, does anyone else have last questions? I see Larry, Bill, Marie, and Beatrice still with us, but it might just be the earphones are hanging on. All right. Seems like that's it. But thank you guys so much. That was wonderful. Really, really well done. I'm going to pause the recording.